Hi everyone, I am Radhakrishna, lecturer in physics, Department of Physics and Electronics, Biviraj College, Vishnupur, Bhimavaram.
Hi everyone, in this PPT I would like to explain the topics in the Unit 2 System of Particles. In this unit the topics are System of Variable Mass, Motion of Rocket, Linear Momentum and Conservation of Linear Momentum, Angular Momentum and Conservation of Angular Momentum, Collisions and Types of Collisions, Two-dimensional elastic collision, two-dimensional oblique collision and three-dimensional collision, impact parameter and scattering cross section, relation between impact parameter and scattering cross section, Rutherford scattering cross section and scattering formula. First of all, I would like to explain the motion of system of variable mass. Generally, the mass of a system remains constant, but in some cases, the mass of a system varies with the time. If the mass of a system of particles or a body varies with the time, then the system is called variable mass system. Example is motion of a rocket. The motion of a system of variable mass can be described by using two figures A and B shown in the diagram. Figure A shows a system of mass M moving with a velocity v bar at an instant of time t. After a time interval delta t, that is, after a time t plus delta t, a small mass delta m has been ejected from the system and the mass delta m is moving with a velocity u bar opposite to the system. Now the system mass is reduced to m minus delta m and the velocity increases to v bar plus delta v bar as shown in figure B. Due to the mass ejected from the system, an external force is acting on the system according to Newton's second law. According to Newton's second law, F bar external is equal to rate of change of momentum dv bar by dt. That is equation 1. For a small interval of time, F bar external is equal to delta p bar by delta t is equal to pf bar minus pi bar by delta t, where pi bar is equal to initial momentum of the system and pf bar is equal to final momentum of the system. Considering both the parts of masses delta m and m minus delta m as forming one and the same system, we can write F bar actually is equal to pf bar minus pi bar by delta t is equal to m minus delta m into v bar plus delta v bar plus delta m u bar minus mv bar whole by delta t. That is equation 2. On solving, we get F bar action is equal to m into delta v bar by delta t minus v bar into delta m by delta t minus delta v bar into delta m by delta t minus u bar into delta m by delta t. For the equation 3. If delta t approaches to 0, then delta v bar by delta t approaches to du bar by dt, delta m by delta t approaches to dm by dt, and delta v bar approaches to 0. Now equation 3 reduces to F bar action is equal to m into du bar by dt plus v bar into dm by dt minus u bar into dm by dt. Now, the external force acting on the system can be written as F bar action is equal to d by dt of mv bar minus u bar into dm by dt. That is equation 4. In this equation, the mass capital M is variable as well as v bar. Equation 4 expresses Newton's second law as applied to variable mass system. If capital M is constant, the above equation is reduces to F bar action is equal to d by dt of mv bar, that is equal to m into du bar by dt, that is equal to ma. But for a variable mass system, F bar action is equal to d by dt of mv bar minus u bar into dm by dt. Now, equation 4 can also be expressed as m into du bar by dt is equal to F bar action plus u bar minus v bar into dm by dt. That is equation 5. The last term of equation 5, that is u bar minus v bar into dm by dt, is the rate of change of momentum of the system due to mass leaving it. This can be regarded as reaction force exerted on the system by the leaving mass. For a rocket, the term u bar minus v bar into dm by dt is called thrust acting on the rocket. In this way, we can describe the motion of variable mass system. Now, the second topic in this unit is motion of a rocket. The rocket is an example of a system of variable mass. The rocket consists of a combustion chamber in which liquid or solid fuel is burnt. When the fuel is burnt, the pressure inside the chamber rises very high. Due to high pressure inside the combustion chamber, the hot gases are expelled from the tail of the rocket. The expelled gases are in the form of a gas jet with a very high exhaust velocity. Consequently, the rocket rushes in a direction opposite to the direction of escape of gases. The motion of rocket can be explained on the basis of Newton's third law of motion and the momentum principle. The rate of change of momentum of gas jet issuing out of the rocket, that is force on the gas jet, is equal to relative velocity into rate of change of mass, that is v bar minus u bar into dm by dt. From Newton's third law of motion, this is equal to the thrust on the rocket to move it in the forward direction. Let F bar external is equal to minus mg bar be the external force acting on the rocket. This is weight of the rocket, where g bar is the acceleration due to gravity. Then the force acting on the rocket in forward direction, that is F bar reaction, is equal to v bar minus u bar into dm by dt minus mg bar, where v bar minus u bar into dm by dt is in forward direction, mg bar is in opposite direction. From Newton's third law of motion, the force acting on the rocket is equal to rate of change of momentum of the rocket, that is d by dt of mv bar. That is equation 2. From equations 1 and 2, we get d by dt of mv bar is equal to v bar minus u bar into dm by dt minus mg bar. Here, on expanding the term on the left hand side, we get m into du bar dt plus v bar into dm by dt. On the right hand side, the first term can be expanded as v bar into dm by dt minus u bar dm by dt. On cancelling the terms, we get m into du bar dt is equal to minus u bar dm by dt minus mg bar. That is equation 3. This is called first rocket equation. Now, dividing on both sides by m, and considering the magnitudes of u bar, v bar and g bar, we have dv is equal to minus u into dm by dt minus g dt. That is equation 4. Integrating equation 4 from the beginning of the motion of rocket, that is from t is equal to 0, where the velocity of the rocket is initial velocity v0 and the total mass of the rocket is m0, to an arbitrary time t, where the velocity increases to v and the mass decreases to capital M. Then we get integral v0 to v dv is equal to minus u into integral m0 to m dm by m minus g into integral 0 to t dt. On solving the integration, we get v is equal to v0 plus u log m0 by m to the base e minus g dt. In this equation, v is the velocity of the rocket after a time t, v0 is initial velocity, u is velocity of gas jet, m0 is initial mass, m is mass of the rocket after a time t, g is acceleration due to gravity. Equation 5 represents the second rocket equation. Now, special cases. If the force of gravity is ignored, that is g is equal to 0, then equation 5 reduces to v is equal to v0 plus u log m0 by m to the base e, that is equation 6. Further, if the initial velocity v0 of the rocket is 0, then v is equal to u log m0 by m to the base e, that is equation 7. From equations 5, 6 and 7, we can determine the velocity of the rocket in the presence of gravitation, in the absence of gravitation, and if the initial velocity is 0. Now, I would like to explain the linear momentum of a body. When a body is in motion, the linear momentum P is defined as the product of its mass m and velocity v. Thus, P is equal to mv. The linear momentum is a vector quantity. In vector form, P bar is equal to mv bar. The SI unit of linear momentum is kilogram meter second inverse. For a system of n particles, the total linear momentum can be written as the vector sum of the linear moment of individual particles. Hence, P is equal to P1 plus P2 plus P3 plus and so on plus Pn, where P1, P2, P3 and so on Pn are the linear moment of the individual particles. P is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2 plus and so on plus mn vn, where m1, m2, m3 and so on mn are the masses of individual particles and v1, v2, v3 and so on vn are the velocity of the particles respectively. Now, P is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n mi vi, that is equal to capital M into VCM. Therefore, P bar is equal to mVCM bar, where capital M is total mass of the system and VCM bar is the velocity of the center of mass of the system. Now, in this slide, I would like to explain principle of conservation of linear momentum. The principle of conservation of linear momentum states that when no external force acts on a system of particles or an isolated system of particles, then the total linear momentum of the system remains constant. Proof. We know that P bar is equal to mVCM bar, where capital M is the total mass of the system, and VCM bar is velocity of the center of mass of the system. Differentiating equation 1 with respect to time t, we get dv bar dt is equal to capital M into dVCM bar dt, that is equal to MACM bar. That is equation 2. Here the mass capital M of the system remains constant. Here ACM bar is the acceleration of the center of mass of the system, but MACM bar is equal to F bar external according to Newton's second law. Therefore, d bar dt is equal to F bar external. This equation shows that the rate of change of linear momentum of the system of particles is equal to the total external force acting on the system, provided no mass leaves or enters the system. When no external force acts on the system, that is F bar external equal 0, d bar dt is equal to 0, or P bar is equal to constant. This shows that when no external force acts on the system, its total linear momentum remains constant. This proves the law of conservation of linear momentum. Now, I would like to explain angular momentum of a system of particles. Consider a particle of mass m moving with velocity v bar and having position of r bar with respect to origin O. Let p bar is equal to mv bar be the linear momentum of this particle. Then the angular momentum L bar of the particle about origin O is defined as the vector product of r bar and p bar. Hence L bar is equal to r bar plus p bar. That is the equation 1. The direction of angular momentum L bar is perpendicular to the plane containing r bar and p bar. This is shown in the diagram. The diagram shows the particle is rotating in xy plane about z axis. The angular momentum L bar is along z direction, that is perpendicular to xy plane. If we consider a system of n particles, then the total angular momentum L bar of the system about the origin O can be expressed as algebraic sum of the angular momentum of the individual particles. Let L bar is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n Li bar, that is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n Ra bar plus Pi bar. That is equation 2. In this slide, I would like to explain the principle of conservation of angular momentum. The principle of conservation of angular momentum states that if no external torque acts on a system of particles or a body rotating about a fixed point, the angular momentum of the system of particles remains constant. Proof. We know that the total angular momentum of the system of particles is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n Ra bar plus Pi bar. Now, differentiating the total angular momentum of the system of particles with respect to t, we get dl bar by dt is equal to d by dt of sigma I is equal to 1 to n Ra bar plus Pi bar, that is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n d by dt of Ra bar plus Pi bar. Here the summation and differentiation can be interchangeable. Now, on solving, we get dl bar dt is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n Ra bar plus Fi bar. Here we know that Ra bar plus Fi bar is equal to tau I bar, where tau I bar is the external torque acting on the ith particle. Therefore, dl bar by dt is equal to tau bar external, where tau bar external is the total torque, external torque acting on the system of particles. If tau bar external is 0, then dl bar by dt is equal to 0 or L bar is equal to constant. This shows that if there is no external torque acting on the system of particles, then the total angular momentum of the system remains constant. Here I would like to explain the topic collisions. Collision means a redistribution of total momentum of the colliding bodies when they approach each other. In physics, the bodies may not even touch with each other, they may be said to collide. Collisions are of three types: elastic collision, inelastic collision, and semi-elastic collision. In an elastic collision, the law of conservation of kinetic energy holds good, in addition to law of conservation of linear momentum. In inelastic collision, the law of conservation of kinetic energy does not obey, only law of conservation of momentum holds good. The collision in between elastic collision and inelastic collision is called semi-elastic collision. Elastic collision, two dimensions. If the colliding bodies are confined a single plane before and after collision, then the collision is said to be two-dimensional collision. Example: the collision between striker and a coin in a carom board. In a carom board, initially the coin is at rest. When the moving striker hits the coin, after hitting, the striker and coin travel in different directions. The two-dimensional perfectly elastic collision between two particles can be described by a diagram shown in the figure. In this diagram, m1 is the mass of a particle moving with the velocity u1 bar along x-axis. The second particle of mass m2 is at rest, that is u2 bar is equal to 0 at the origin. After collision, the first particle of mass m1 is moving with a velocity v1 bar, making an angle θ1 with the collision axis, that is x-axis, and the second particle of mass m2 moving with the velocity v2 bar, making an angle θ2 with x-axis. The velocities v1 bar and v2 bar of the two particles after collision can be resolved into x and y components. v1 bar can be resolved into v1 cos θ1 along x-axis and v1 sin θ1 along y-axis. v2 bar can be resolved into v2 cos θ2 along x-axis and v2 sin θ2 along negative y-axis. To describe the two-dimensional elastic collision, here we consider that the second body is initially at rest for our convenience. Now, applying law of conservation of linear momentum along x-axis, we get m1 u1 plus 0 is equal to m1 v1 cos θ1 plus m2 v2 cos θ2. That is equation 1. On the left hand side of equation 1, the second term is 0 because the second body is initially at rest. Applying law of conservation of linear momentum along y-axis, we get 0 plus 0 is equal to m1 v1 sin θ1 minus m2 v2 sin θ2. That is equation 2. In this equation, on the left hand side, both the terms are 0 because there is no motion of the two particles along y direction. Now, applying law of conservation of kinetic energy, we get half m1 u1 square plus 0 is equal to half m1 v1 square plus half m2 v2 square. That is equation 3. Here we have to determine 4 unknown quantities v1, v2, theta 1 and theta 2. But we have only 3 equations 1, 2 and 3 connecting these quantities. This is not possible. Hence, one more quantity, say theta 1, should be given to solve the problem of collision. Further, for our convenience, let m1 is equal to m2. On substituting m1 is equal to m2, from equations 1, 2 and 3 we get u1 minus v1 cos theta 1 is equal to v2 cos theta 2, that is equation 4. v1 sin theta 1 is equal to v2 sin theta 2, that is equation 5. u1 square minus v1 square is equal to v2 square, that is equation 6. On solving equations 4, 5 and 6 we get v1 is equal to u1 cos theta 1, that is equation 7. v2 is equal to u1 sin theta 1, that is equation 8. And again from equation 5 we get sin theta 2 is equal to v1 by v2 into sin theta 1, that is equation 9. From equations 7, 8 and 9 we can determine v1, v2 and theta 2 respectively, where v1 and v2 are the velocity of the two particles after collision and theta 2 represents the direction of motion of the second particle after collision. From equations 7 and 8 it is clear that v1 and v2 are the perpendicular components of u1, that is theta 1 plus theta 2 is equal to 9 degrees. Thus, in a perfectly elastic collision between two particles of equal masses, where one particle is initially at rest, then the two particles always move off perpendicular to each other after collision. In this way, we can describe the two-dimensional perfectly elastic collision. In this slide, I would like to explain elastic oblique collision. If the directions of motion of the colliding particles or spheres before and after collision are different, then the collision is said to be oblique collision. That means before collision and after collision, the colliding bodies moving in different directions. To describe oblique collision, consider two spheres or particles of mass m1, m2 moving with velocities u1 bar and u2 bar in different directions. They are making angles alpha and beta with collision axis before collision. Then after collision, the two bodies or spheres of masses m1, m2 moving with velocities v1 bar and v2 bar respectively. They are making angles theta and phi with collision axis after collision. Since the collision is along x-axis, the x components are changes, but the y components of velocities are unaffected. Hence, v1 sin theta 1 is equal to u1 sin alpha, that is equation 1. v2 sin phi is equal to u2 sin beta, that is equation 2. Now, from Newton's law, the relative velocity of separation of two bodies after collision is equal to the relative velocity of approach of the two spheres before collision. Hence, v2 cos phi minus v1 cos theta is equal to u1 cos alpha minus u2 cos beta, that is equation 3. Applying the law of conservation of linear momentum along x-axis, we get m2 v2 cos phi plus m1 v1 cos theta is equal to m2 u2 cos beta plus m1 u1 cos alpha. That is the equation 4. In this collision, we have to solve 4 unknown quantities v1, v2, theta and phi. We have also 4 equations connecting these quantities. Now, multiplying equation 3 by m2 and then subtracting equation 4 from it, we get v1 cos theta is equal to m2 minus m1 by m1 plus m2 into u1 cos alpha plus 2m2 by m1 plus m2 into u2 cos beta. That is the equation 5. Similarly, multiplying equation 3 by m1 and then adding it to equation 4, we get v2 cos phi is equal to m2 minus m1 by m1 plus m2 into u2 cos beta plus 2m1 by m1 plus m2 into u1 cos alpha. That is equation 6. Here the derivations are not necessary. You have to remember the two equations 5 and 6 carefully. Now, squaring and adding equations 1 and 5, we get v1, and similarly the squaring and adding equations 2 and 6, we get v2. The angles theta and phi can be found by dividing equations 1 and 5 and equations 2 and 6 respectively. Here also the derivations are not necessary. The oblique collision between two spheres can be described by using equations 1, 2 and 5 and 6. Here the special cases are: first case 1, if u2 is equal to 0, that means the second sphere is initially at rest, then from equation 2 we get v2 sin phi is equal to 0. As v2 is not equal to 0, that is sin phi is equal to 0 or phi is equal to 0. That is, if the sphere of mass at rest, it will move along the line of impact after collision. Case 2, if u2 is equal to 0 and m1 is equal to m2, then from equation 2 phi is equal to 0 and from equation 5 theta is equal to 90 degrees. This shows that if a sphere collide obliquely on another sphere of same mass at rest, then the direction of motions of the spheres after impact will be at right angles. Case 3, if two equal and perfectly elastic spheres collide obliquely at right angles to each other, then their directions after impact will be still right angles to each other. In this slide, I would like to explain impact parameter. The impact parameter is defined as the closest distance between nucleus and positively charged particle projected towards it. This is also known as collision parameter. This can be explained as: consider a positively charged particle like alpha particle approaching a massive nucleus N of an atom as shown in figure. Due to Coulombic repulsive force, the alpha particle follows a hyperbolic path AB with the nucleus N as its focus. In the absence of repulsive force, the particle would have followed the straight line path AC, but due to Coulombic force, the alpha particle follows the path AB. Now, the perpendicular distance between the initial direction of alpha particle, that is AC, from the nucleus N is called impact parameter. That is, Nm is equal to P is the impact parameter. Now, I would like to explain scattering cross section. The scattering cross section in a given direction is defined as the ratio of number of scattering particles into solid angle d omega per unit time to the incident intensity. This can be explained as when a beam of alpha particles is projected into a thin metal foil, the alpha particles are scattered in different directions as shown in figure. Let Kaplan be the incident intensity, that is the number of incident particles crossing per unit time a unit surface placed perpendicular to the direction of propagation. Suppose dn be the number of alpha particles scattered per unit time into the solid angle d omega located in the direction theta and phi with respect to bombarding direction. Then the ratio dn by n is called scattering cross section. Dimensionally, a cross section represents an area. Scattering cross section sigma s is equal to dn by n. The SI unit of scattering cross section is barn. 1 barn is equal to 10 to the power of minus 28 meters square. In this unit, the last topics are Rutherford scattering cross section and scattering formula. To derive Rutherford scattering cross section and scattering formula, first we have to derive relation between impact parameter and scattering angle. For this derivation, the diagram used is shown in figure. In the figure, n is the nucleus of charge plus ZE, p is the impact parameter, that is the perpendicular distance between initial direction of alpha particle AO and nucleus n. B is the closest distance of the alpha particle when the alpha particle approaches directly towards the nucleus. Phi is the angle between initial direction of alpha particle AO and final direction of alpha particle OB. This phi is called scattering angle. OA and OB are also called as asymptotes of the hyperbolic path AB. AB is the trajectory of alpha particle when the alpha particle approaches the nucleus due to repulsive force between nucleus and alpha particle. The alpha particle traverses a path AB instead of path AO. This path is hyperbolic path. First of all, consider the case when alpha particle is directed straight towards the nucleus so that the impact parameter P is equal to 0. In this case, the alpha particle will be stopped at distance B from the nucleus N due to Coulombic repulsive force and traces its reverse path, that is the scattering angle phi is equal to 180 degrees. The distance B is known as distance of closest approach. The electrostatic potential at a distance B due to nucleus is given by ZE by 4 pi epsilon 0 B. The potential of the alpha particle at a distance B from the nucleus is electrostatic potential into charge of the alpha particle, that is ZE by 4 pi epsilon 0 B into 2E, that is equal to 2 ZE square by 4 pi epsilon 0 B. When the alpha particle approaches directly towards the nucleus, it is momentarily stopped at a distance B, where its kinetic energy half mv0 square is completely converted into its potential energy 2 ZE square by 4 pi epsilon 0 b. That is half mv0 square is equal to 2 ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 b. Therefore, b is equal to 2 ze square by pi epsilon 0 mv0 square, where v0 is the velocity of the alpha particle when it is at distance b from the nucleus. In practice, the impact parameter p is not equal to 0. In this case, the alpha particle is deflected through an angle which is less than 180 degrees and traverses a hyperbolic path ACB due to Coulombic repulsive force between nucleus and alpha particle. Let v be the velocity of the alpha particle at the vertex C of the hyperbola. Now, the angular momentum of the alpha particle when it is at A is equal to linear momentum into perpendicular of the alpha particle from the nucleus, that is mv0 into p. The angular momentum of the alpha particle when it is at C is equal to mv into nc, where mv is the linear momentum of the alpha particle when it is at C and nc is the perpendicular of the alpha particle from nucleus when it is at C. That is equal to mvd, where d is equal to nc. According to law of conservation of angular momentum, mv0p is equal to mvd, or v is equal to v0p by d. That is equation 2. Now, the kinetic energy of the alpha particle when it is at A is equal to half mv0 square. The kinetic energy of the alpha particle when it is at C is equal to half mv square. The potential energy of the alpha particle when it is at A is equal to 0. The potential energy of the alpha particle when it is at C is equal to 2 ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 d. According to law of conservation of energy, half mv0 square plus 0 is equal to half mv square plus 2 ze square by 4 pi epsilon 0 d. Dividing on both sides by m, and on solving the above equation we get v square is equal to v0 square minus bv0 square by d is equal to v0 square into 1 minus b by d. That is equation 3. Substituting the value of v from equation 2 in equation 3, we get v0 square p square by d square is equal to v0 square into 1 minus b by d, that is equal to v0 square into d minus b by d. On cancelling v0 square both sides, we get p square is equal to d into d minus b, that is equation 4. By the property of hyperbola, the eccentricity E is equal to secant theta. The focal length ON is equal to E into OC is equal to E into A into secant theta, where OC is equal to A. From figure, ON is equal to P cosec theta, and from the properties of hyperbola, ON is equal to A secant theta. Therefore, A secant theta is equal to P cosec theta, or A is equal to P cosec theta by secant theta, that is A is equal to P cot theta. Again from figure, NC is equal to NO plus OC. Therefore, NC is equal to A secant theta plus A, that is equal to A into 1 plus secant theta. Therefore, D is equal to P cot theta into 1 plus secant theta. On expanding cot theta as cos theta by sin theta, and secant theta is equal to 1 by cos theta. Then on solving the above equation, we get D is equal to P cot theta by 2. That is equation 5. From equations 4 and 5, we get P square is equal to P cot theta by 2 into P cot theta by 2 minus B. On solving, we get B is equal to 2P cot theta. From figure, the angle theta is equal to pi minus phi by 2. That is, theta is equal to pi by 2 minus phi by 2. On substituting, B is equal to 2P into cot pi by 2 minus phi by 2, that is equal to 2P tan phi by 2. Therefore, tan phi by 2 is equal to B by 2P, that is equation 6. Substituting the value of B from equation 1 in equation 6, we get tan phi by 2 is equal to ZE square by 2 pi epsilon 0 MB0 square P, that is equation 7. This equation gives the relation between scattering angle phi and impact parameter. From equation 7, it is clear that smaller the value of P, the greater will be the phi. That is, if P is equal to 0, phi is equal to 180 degrees, or P not equal to 0, phi less than 180 degrees. I would like to explain Rutherford scattering cross section and scattering formula. For this purpose, we use a diagram shown in the figure. A beam of alpha particles incident on the scatterer of thickness T. The scattered beam of alpha particles are incident on a fluorescent screen at a suitable distance, placed normal to the scatterer. This is shown in the figure. I will give the explanation in the next slide. Consider the case when a narrow beam of alpha particles is incident normally on a thin gold foil, acts as scatterer. Let small n be the number of atoms per unit volume of the scatterer of thickness T. The scattered particles are detected by means of scintillations produced by the alpha particles on fluorescent screen S, placed normal to the scatterer at a suitable distance. Let Q be the total number of alpha particles that strike the unit area of the scatterer, and capital N be the number that are scattered through an angle phi and strike unit area of the screen S at a distance R. In order to determine the probability that an alpha particle would come within the distance P, we imagine a circle of radius P drawn around each nucleus. The area occupied by all such circles in unit area of the foil is pi p square nt, where pi p square is the area around the nucleus, n is the number of atoms per unit volume of the scatterer, and T is the thickness of the scatterer. Now, the probable number of alpha particles coming within the distance of an impact parameter P of the nucleus is given by pi p square ntq. The number of alpha particles having impact parameters between P and P plus dP can be obtained by differentiating the probability term pi p square ntq. That is, d of pi p square ntq, that is equal to 2 pi p ntq dp. That is equation 1. This number also gives the number of alpha particles scattered between scattering angles phi and phi plus d phi. Now, I would like to define scattering cross section as the ratio between number of alpha particles scattered into solid angle d omega per unit time and incident intensity. That is, sigma is equal to number of alpha particles scattered into solid angle d omega per unit time whole by incident intensity. From this definition, we have to calculate the number of alpha particles scattered into solid angle d omega as sigma I d omega is equal to sigma I into 2 pi sin phi d phi. That is equation 2, where I is the incident intensity. This should be equal to the number of incident alpha particles having impact parameters between P and P plus dP. Now, the area between circles of radii P and P plus dP can be obtained by differentiating the area pi p square. That is, d of pi p square is equal to 2 pi p dp. Therefore, the number of alpha particles incident is equal to 2 pi p dp into I. This is equation 3. From equations 2 and 3, we get sigma I 2 pi sin phi d phi is equal to minus 2 pi p dp I. Here, Newton is used to show that an increase in impact parameter P causes a decrease in scattering angle phi. Hence, scattering cross section sigma is equal to minus p dp by 2 pi sin phi d phi. That is equation 4. We know that the impact parameter P is equal to Ze square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mb0 square into cot phi by 2. Differentiating the value of impact parameter P with respect to phi, we get dP is equal to Ze square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mb0 square into minus 1 by 2 cosecant square phi by 2 into d phi. Substituting the values of impact parameter P and the value of dP in equation 4, we get scattering cross section sigma is equal to Ze square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mb0 square whole square into cot phi by 2 into minus 1 by 2 cosecant square phi by 2 into d phi whole by sin phi d phi. On solving the expression, we get the scattering cross section sigma is equal to Z square e power 4 by 16 pi square epsilon 0 square m square v0 power 4 sin power 4 phi by 2. This is equation 5. This equation is known as Rutherford scattering cross section. I would like to explain the derivation of Rutherford scattering formula. The expression for the number n of scattered alpha particles striking unit area of the screen is called Rutherford scattering formula. This can be derived as follows. The number of alpha particles scattered between scattering angles phi and phi plus d phi is given by 2 pi p ntq dp. In this expression, p is impact parameter, n is the number of atoms per unit volume of the scatterer, and t is the thickness of the scatterer. Q is the total number of alpha particles that strike unit area of the scatterer. Substituting the values of P and dP in the above expression, we get 2 pi ntq into Ze square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mv0 square into cot phi by 2 into Ze square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mv0 square into minus 1 by 2 cosecant square phi by 2 into d phi. This is equation 6. As these particles will strike the screen within a circular angles of area dA, this area dA is in between the concentric circles drawn on the screen of radii r sin phi and r sin phi plus r d phi, which is given by dA is equal to 2 pi r sin phi into r d phi is equal to 4 pi r square sin phi by 2 cos phi by 2 into d phi. This is equation 7. Now the number n of scattered alpha particles striking unit area of the screen is given by Kaplan is equal to 2 pi ntq into ZE square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mb0 square into cot phi by 2 into ZE square by 2 pi epsilon 0 mb0 square into minus 1 by 2 cosine square phi by 2 into d phi whole by 4 pi r square sin phi by 2 cos phi by 2 d phi. This can be solved as n is equal to ntq z square e power 4 by 16 pi square epsilon 0 square m square r square v0 power 4 sin power 4 phi by 2. This is equation 8. This is known as Rutherford scattering formula. After watching this PowerPoint presentation, I hope you will understand the topics in the unit 2 system of particles. In this unit, the questions given in the examination are of the form: what is variable mass system? Derive the equation of motion of variable mass system. Explain the motion of a rocket under a constant gravitational field. What is linear momentum? State and prove law of conservation of linear momentum. What is angular momentum? State and prove law of conservation of angular momentum. Write a note on impact parameter and scattering cross section. These questions carries 5 marks each. Now the essay questions are: first question is explain elastic and inelastic collisions. Give the theory of elastic collisions in 2 dimensions. The second question is explain elastic and inelastic collisions. Give the theory of elastic oblique collisions in 2 dimensions. The third question is define the terms impact parameter and scattering cross section. Derive the relation between impact parameter and scattering cross section. And the last question, most important question, is what is Rutherford scattering? Obtain expressions for Rutherford scattering cross section and scattering formula. The reference books used to prepare this PPT are BSc Physics Volume 1, Telugu Academy, Hyderabad; Unified Physics, Mechanics and Properties of Matter by Dr. S.L. Gupta and Sanjeev Gupta, J. Prakash Nath and Co., Meerut; and Fundamentals of Physics Volume 1, Resnick, Holiday and Crane, Wiley, India, 2007 edition. These reference books are very useful to understand subject.